Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November session of Krapar Kini, Classical Armenian and Wine, an informal reading group where we get to delve into the 1500-year history of Armenian literature that's been written in this old form of the language. Usually both because of the content of Armenian literature as being originally invented, the alphabet being invented as a language for evangelization, Christian evangelization, and the bulk of writing being in the hands of clerics for most of pre-modern Armenian history. We've often looked at theological texts, liturgical texts, texts from the monastic tradition. Tonight, it'll be fun to turn to something a little different. So we have these histories, almost all of them likewise written by clerics, but in these passages that Ashley Bozian has chosen, who I'll introduce in just a minute, they're texts that somehow relate to sex, gender, or the body. And we can see the other side of pre-modern Armenian society that isn't, I guess, sanitized by the clerical lens through which most of the texts pass. So Ashley Bozian is a PhD candidate at St. John's University in the history department, and she's writing her dissertation on gender, sex, and the body in early medieval Armenian society. She first started to study Krapar in a previous iteration of Krapar Kini through the Zohrab Center with Bishop Daniel and a couple other students. And then I had the pleasure of having Ashley in a summer class that I taught through Dumbarton Oaks and the Hill Museum and Manuscript Library, along with 9 other students over Zoom last summer. And I asked Ashley if she could lead a session in our group here, and she kindly agreed. And without further ado, I'm excited to hear from you, Ashley, tonight.
Thank you, Jesse, for that lovely introduction. Although you might regret turning this over to me when we all look at the text that I have chosen for today. But I am writing my dissertation, finishing my dissertation, inshallah, this year on gender, sex, and the body in early medieval Armenia. And like so many research projects, mine started out with a different question than the one I've ended up answering. The question I started with was, what was the situation of women in early medieval Armenia? How were women represented in these texts? And as I started reading for representations of women, I realized there was this much more interesting story going on about the body. And every time I found something interesting about women, it almost always involved the body, the female body. And then I realized it wasn't only the female body, it was the male body too. And it was just bodies in general that there was this really interesting story about, until the body really became like this, its own character that had a story to tell. It became this actor, this major historical actor whose story needed to be told and needed to be investigated and addressed and charted. So that's what I ended up doing. And it's been a really interesting process. So the question I started with was, what's going on with women in early medieval Armenian texts? And the question I ended up answering was, what was the role of the body? What role did the body play in constructing and contributing to early medieval Armenian culture? And there are a couple of answers that I've come up with, and I've made some notes that I will be returning to. So I had mentioned the body being sort of this character, right? This actor that manifests itself across these historical texts. And the body becomes this major player in dictating and constructing and reflecting how people think about identity and alterity. And that's the major idea. Identity and alterity become the primary lenses through which we see the body and the primary things that the body convey and communicate. So the two ways in which we see this primarily are through sexuality and through violence. And there's this nexus about sex and violence that sort of interplay and interact with one another to disclose the Armenian attitudes on the body itself, to disclose Armenian attitudes on what it means to be Armenian. And there are all these different identity categories that kind of collapse around the body. So there's the male body, which comes up more often than the female body, I would say, actually. Then there's the female body as its own separate category. And this applies to Armenian women and non-Armenian women. We see this applying to Persian women, Arab women, Muslim women, Jewish women a little bit, once or twice. But there's also this category of sort of womanity in general, and it kind of tends to supersede what it means to be an Armenian woman or what it means to be an Odar woman, a foreign woman. But we don't really see that with the male body. We see male bodies are, these male bodies are Armenian and these male bodies are foreign. So that kind of comes up really clearly, which was really interesting. So one of the things that I wanted to, that I have addressed in my dissertation is this interaction between sexuality and violence. And often the two come together, they tend to be one and the same or come together in the same passages. And sexuality in these Armenian texts is often very violent and depicted alongside violence in ways that are violent or in ways that accompany violence. And similarly, violence is often very sexual and very sexualized. So that comes through really strongly in the first passage that I've chosen today, where one of the most violent moments of the text is deals explicitly with sexual violence. And I guess I have a lot more to say about the text itself, but before I move on, if anyone has questions about my research or my dissertation, I'm happy to answer them.
That's a great introduction, Ashley. Yeah, I asked Ashley to talk about her research in general since it's so fascinating and is such a different approach to these texts than have traditionally been taken. And I thought it would be worthwhile for us not just to spend our time reading the text, but also hear from her on the front lines of her research. So maybe would it be a good idea to turn to the text now, or would you like to make more remarks and then go back to the reading the text at the end?
That's a good question, Jesse. I guess why don't we jump into the text now, and then I can maybe piece together how and where each of these ideas fits into my research.
That sounds great.
Okay.
So I'll pull it up so we can all kind of look together on the screen. Is everyone seeing the Word document, the text?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so Ashley, do you want to just read it through all the way in Armenian, and then we can kind of take it sentence by sentence?
Sure, I will read slowly. Isknotsa jogovial I dajarmi and Gini medin. Yevahana Arial is machagan or Kitken Yevtulpat can gain yet pedal zarai mi arachinora. Isknora.
Sorry.
That's okay. Isknora zarhurial ase. Zinchait badmiains. Yevna garka badmiats nama zor inch ararialer. Isknora pargatsial arial izdekin. I serane zarain gamer harganel zvaham. Yevnora tsukial Seren your I suren vor arachigai. Gariats tilpaden nora yev et I peran nora. Yevase tu es vor tushnamaneir zasvads yev is gronor is
Grona Vorsen.
Grona Vorsen. That was a mouthful. Thank you, Jesse. Imspananel edor yedor Isyunsen Ashari. Yev Iskitsen Ye Desanel Achatsen. Yev Badarial is Poren. Yed Zarayin Hanel is Learthan. Yev Tanel Iperanen. Yev Harial is Tanagan I Porsen Yed Tohul Itzitz. Yev Minchlog vor Stolpaden Gedriats Ase. Dur Panitz Nich Yev Badver I Barsitzen vor Haba Hunis Yev yes Abret Sutsanem Diskez Yevna Tvial Panis Pazumas Yev Badver Yert Mam Satsial Zorna Yevna Miain Kidain Yev Iprev Asats Zirsen Arial is Panagen Yahar I Sirden Yev Anten Merav.
So can I ask a quick question, or maybe not a quick question?
Please.
I went through these texts and I kind of translated them, and this one was a lot of third person singular without any names to it. Can you give us some background of what's going on in the story first? Because it might make it easier to understand who's talking to who and what.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because that was actually one of my challenges too in approaching this text. And there are no people names. And if you look at the English translation given by Levon Avdoyan, he puts the names in brackets because he's gone through and he's figured out who exactly is speaking to whom and who's doing what to whom. And that was one of my challenges when I looked at this text in English. You know, English pronouns and modern Armenian pronouns don't have this sense of one pronoun referring to a particular person in the passage. So a lot of Nora and Yur pronouns will go back and refer to which person is doing what. So it's funny, I actually was going through this and I sent Jesse an email, a really unique email earlier this summer when I was his student in the Krapar course. And I copied a section from this passage and I wanted to make sure I had the pronouns right and I had interpreted correctly the meaning of this text. And the question that I asked of poor Jesse was, did I get this right? Like, whose mouth did this foreskin go into? And I'm sure Jesse hopes he never gets another email like that again. So I'm sorry to Jesse, and thank you for helping me with that one.
Yeah. Can I just say it's much more interesting when I'm one of the few who did not understand what Ashley was saying there while she was reading that passage.
You're not alone.
So
Trust me. No.
I had no idea what she was talking about till she just mentioned the email she sent you, which all of a sudden was like, wow, okay, that's what that said.
We're going to go through it bit by bit because the initial reading was just to kind of hear it, but we'll go back through it slowly to see sentence by sentence what happened. Just so brief contextual background, I believe, so Vahan, one character, is a Christian noble lord who is engaged in military battles. And then there's Mirhan, who is a Persian. This is during the actually like 4th, 5th century.
Allegedly, yeah, it's supposed to be, but the dating of the actual text is a little more controversial.
Yeah, so the episode relates to like the Sasanian Empire, Sasanian Iran, Zoroastrian, and Christian Armenia. And Armenia is a vassal of the Sasanian Empire, but they have a different religion. And so I believe this is during some time of persecution of the Christians by the Sasanian Zoroastrians. And Vahan has gone on these kind of military campaigns where he's slaughtered a bunch of people and taken body parts from their bodies that we'll see and carried them in a sack and brought them to the Persian court. And hasn't revealed his intentions yet of what he's planning to do to his vassal lord, or suzerain lord. But he kind of goes by subterfuge and gets his way into the court and has a plan of what he's going to do to Mirhan to get him back for persecuting and killing Christians. And so this is like right on the cusp of that scene.
And to answer the question that came up, I believe it is meant to be Vahan Mamikonian, or one of the Vahan Mamikonians, since this is taken from the history of Taron, which is, very clearly Mamikonian territory, and it's their seat of power. And there's a lot of reverence and glorification of the Mamikonian dynasty in the text. That's like the whole point of the text.
Yeah. So does someone want to take a stab at, you can reread again and translate the first sentence, 147.
Rich, go for it.
I will pass on that. I don't want to embarrass anyone, especially myself.
So for our regular participants, go ahead and just unmute yourself and take a stab at reading the sentence and saying what you understand from it.
The English, I think, is, and with wine they entered their assembly in the temple.
Okay, so can you kind of explain bit by bit why you do that, or where you see that?
Isk is but or and. Notza is a pronoun they. Jogovial, group of people, assembly. Idajar in the temple, in one temple, or with wine they entered. That's how I'm kind of reading it.
Okay, good. Any other comments, corrections, different interpretation by others who prepared the text?
I had also taken Medine as a declension of need, like wine in their minds, but that was not correct.
What kind of a temple would you enter with wine?
Okay, so
On one
Persian one, maybe.
maybe.
let's turn to our good friend, the dictionary. And
I was reading Medina as Madanel,
good.
aorist, third person.
Thinking about?
Before we get there, let's just look. So Dajar, modern Armenian, temple, bars. There's no other meaning really, that's it. So if you're coming from modern Armenian, you're confused because why did they enter a temple and do this? In Krapar, in Old Armenian, Dajar has a wider range of meanings. So you can see it can mean palace, court, or banqueting hall. And that's definitely what it means here. So let's go back. So that's that part. And then this phrase, Ant Kini Medine. So Matt, what did you say Medine is from?
Madanem.
Yes.
So with wine they entered.
Yeah, so Medine from Madanem. And it's the past tense. So they, plural, they entered. And then what the hell does it mean to enter with wine? Like, what, how do you understand that?
Drunk. They are drunk.
Yes, that's what
I
it,
would, yeah.
so why do you say that, Moses?
Well, I mean, Metkin means in their head. I mean, the wine is in their head.
Okay, that's interesting. So that's how Ashley saw it at first, but this isn't from Midk. It's from Madanem. which is the Krapar version of matnel. So enter.
And
Could it also be that, could it
uh,
also be that they were presenting the wine as a gift, as a tribute in the temple? Or in the palace or wherever they were entering? The
Yeah,
wine was intended as an offering.
yeah, that's a very logical thing to think. But again, oh wait, what did I say? If we go here, it's actually an idiom. I forget if I found it under Kini or no, Madanem. So if you look under Madanem, or maybe it was Kini. Okay.
Kini medialer եւ այփրալ
Oh, here it is. Okay, so see Kini ant kinis Madanel, or as kinyok anganel, or ikin voclinel, are all idioms or expressions, ways of saying get drunk.
and of course, we have the word kinov for drunk
Kinov.
also.
Exactly, kinov tzads or kinov, exactly.
Right. We
So
have a
this
lot of
is,
words in
yeah.
English, how to say that too, right?
What was that, Chris?
I said we have a lot of words in English to say to get drunk as well.
Absolutely.
So, connections here. Just trying to make connections.
So they're saying, but all of them in the banquet hall were drunk, or the court were drunk.
Yeah, it's
They're
kind
not
of like
entering,
saying
they're just in that state of mind,
they came under the
is it-
influence of wine. They
Okay.
entered into the courts, into wine. It has nothing to do with court, just it's a way of saying they got drunk. They got under the influence of wine, something like that. Okay. There's a major grammatical thing that we can either talk about now or later. Matt, what did you understand for this notsage jovial? I think you're muted, actually, Matt.
Now I'm good. Their assembly, their group, their gathering.
Does anyone remember us talking about the use of the genitive as the subject when there's an aorist participle? That whole weird thing.
Yeah.
Vaguely, because that was really confusing. That's why I understand it. It's okay. So
Okay, let's leave it for now and we'll come back to it because we're gonna see the same grammatical thing used at least 3 times in the first 3 sentences and more. But let's just go to the next sentence for now. So yeah, basically so, and they gathered together in a palace and got drunk. Vahan and Nirhan. So then who wants to take the next?
excuse me, Jesse. Did they get into the church drunk, or they go to the church to drink and to get drunk?
Okay, so there's a grammatical way to tell, and it's this. So jovial is a past participle. Past participles are like when it's used with, so this is a past tense verb, and this is a past participle, and it means that this happened either along with this or more commonly right before it. So literally, and they having gathered in a temple, they got drunk. So they got into the temple first and then they got drunk.
I see. Thank you.
Jesse, there is another way of looking at this. Because Medine, it means also a city which was the capital of Persia. It's called Medina.
Mhm. But not here.
What's that?
But not here.
No. You don't know. So what
We
he's
do know.
saying, Dajjal, he went to the Dajjal, which is, as you said, a palace. And in the palace, which was in Medina, the capital of the Persian Empire, of the Sassanid Empire. You need to check that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, at that time, the capital wasn't Medine. It was Ctesiphon. But this is
Well, that's exactly, actually, the other name of Sappho is Medina.
in a later period. But this is definitely the expression Ant Kini Medanel, to get drunk. Who wants to read 148 and say what they understand there?
I'll read it, Jesse.
Please, Avo.
Yeah, although I couldn't understand every single word, but it goes as Ezvahana Arial Zbakagan Ur Kitkan Yev Tulpadankan Gain Yet Perel Zaraimi Archinora. Is that tray?
Ask that again, Avo.
I couldn't figure out what mahar is. Is it a tray?
Ashley, would you want to help us out here?
It's a big sack.
It's a sack. Okay. Dobrak.
Yes.
Okay. Couldn't find it in any dictionary. It seems like Vahan is bringing that sack where there are noses and skin cuts, the nice way of saying it, perhaps.
Good.
And he brought it in front of a servant. Do I pass with 4.5 into 5?
Pretty good. Yeah, Ashley, do you want to comment on?
Yeah, he had it brought before them by a servant, by the Zara.
He gave to the servant, like he gave a command to the servant.
Yeah, he had it brought. He had it brought by the servant. Jesse, jump in if I'm not 100% here.
Yeah, it's exactly that. So when the way to say in Armenian, in Krapar, you have someone do something, is you give to them to do. So he gave Yed, Zaraimi in the dative, he gave to the servant to bring Perel Arachinora before him. These things.
So the foreskin word, I was looking into that, and there was one definition where it was like the entire penis they were talking about. Is it just the foreskins, or is the ears and the penis is the bag, or the ears and foreskins? Because the foreskin on its own didn't make sense. Like they took trophies from battle, you wouldn't take a foreskin, you take the whole thing. That's how I'm understanding that.
Ashley, you're the expert here.
I am. My family's so proud of me for being an expert on this kind of stuff. So I do think foreskin is the best translation. And the reason for that is that we do see the foreskin in particular being taken as a trophy. And we see this over and over again in Armenian texts. We'll see the word tilpad, but other synonyms, which escape me at the moment. I don't think it would have been the entire phallus in any or in many cases. And the foreskin does actually have the significance to Armenian Christianity. And it has a lot to do with this early Christian practice, like 2nd century CE practice, where some Gentiles would get circumcised and become Jews on the way to becoming Christians, as sort of like a progression. They would think, oh, I can't jump right to being a Christian. I have to become a Jew first and then become a Christian like Christ. And then St. Paul kind of railed against this. And he said, no, if you do that, then you are violating the covenant. That means you don't believe in the covenant. Oh, Dan, thank you. Let's see. Thank you, Dan. Dan here is an expert on Byzantium, so that's very helpful. And so we do see the foreskin having this religious significance, and the Armenians were very much on the side of Paul, saying that if you circumcise yourself, then you're not really in agreement with the new covenants, and you're like mutilating yourself for no good reason. So the Armenians tend to do this thing across these texts where they will mutilate the foreskins. They'll cut the foreskins of their enemies to humiliate them, to say, oh, look at how backwards they are now. Your foreskin is gone and you've done this silly thing.
Okay, thank
and apparently, yeah, you're welcome.
That makes sense. No, I appreciate the explanation.
You're welcome. Yeah, and it was also a kind of trophy that would leave men somewhat intact. There were other means of sexual violence that were not meant to leave them intact, and I guess I'll get into that later. Dan, I don't know if you want to comment any more on the Byzantine foreskin trophies. No pressure. Okay. Thank you for that contribution. I appreciate it.
Well, if I may, cutting the foreskin is much easier than cutting the whole thing. And also, when a soldier is dead, the penis is not erect. So it's much easier to cut the foreskin. So
that's a good point. And it says in the passage previously, like just how many he cut. And he's carrying it in a sack, and he's got noses in there too. So you have to think about weight too and transport. And presumably, so like he's kind of sneaking into the palace with the Persian governor or whoever it is here. And so he's going to kind of like surprise bring it out. And obviously, the smaller the package, the easier it is to hide before the big display.
These are good points. And I like the Freudian connection in the comment with the nose. Also, rhinotomy, slicing of the nose, was also a very common torture tactic used in this historical setting. We see this in Persian literature as well, where rhinotomy and cropping, which is severing of the ears, these are all common techniques to, oh no, Chris, I'm so sorry. I told you that was going to happen, by the way, didn't I tell you? But yeah, circumcision, cropping, and rhinotomy were the ways in which soldiers would humiliate enemy combatants, and they would take these body parts in bags and they would show them off as trophies. And it was also a way to leave the people scarred and mutilated and humiliated, as if to say, look, they've been defeated in battle. And they would survive these injuries often because the nose and ears are not well vasculated. So there's not a lot of blood flow. There's not a lot of blood supply going to them. So they typically would be able to survive injuries like that. I had read about that as well. Thank you, Dr. SMG. Yeah. And these remain common punishments.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't you glad you invited me here this evening?
Absolutely. You're going to be invited back, maybe for like a, yeah, we'll talk.
Okay.
So who wants to try the next sentence?
I'll take it.
Go ahead.
149 is Norazar Hurial Ase Zinche Aid Batmia Ins. They were astonished or angry, I guess the whole participants, and they said, what is this? Tell us.
Great. Ashley, do you want to comment on anything?
I think the only thing I would change is what does this tell me? Badmiayins.
Yes, and also here, Avo, so if it was plural, it would be notsa. Nora is singular. So it's just a one-on-one scene between Bahan and Mirhan. So
this is Miran saying, tell me, or is Miran being,
yes.
Miran is the speaker here? Okay.
And why, how do we know that?
Because
Na
Because
indicates
Vahan brought the sack in, so who else would it be? It can't be Vahan doing it, saying this.
yeah, and also na indicates a change of subject. Whenever the sentence starts with na or nora, it's indicating a change of perspective to a different subject.
I have a question on this. Why is he Zarhurial or afraid? Because he doesn't know what's in there.
Maybe he thinks Vahan's up to something. He's his enemy.
Or it could be gifts.
They're
could be
like, it's a good question, Moses. They're kind of like skipping steps a little. So the idea here is, so they gather in the temple, get drunk. Then Vahan pulls out this sack where the noses and the foreskins were, and he gives it to a servant to take before him. So you imagine a servant coming up before him, and then what were implied is the servant opens it, or Mirhan opens it, looks into it, and is like, and then it goes, and he, astonished, says, "What is this? Tell me. What is that? Tell me."
Okay.
But he didn't say all that. It's like what you kind of have to imply. Okay, so let's look real quick at these grammatical forms in yellow. So what do you notice as common about all of them?
Well, you already told us it's got the genitive before the participle.
Yeah. So they all, participles, this kind of participle, the aorist participle ends in y'all. It's like the equivalent of ed in English. So like depressed or saddened or overjoyed or pleased, those kind of things. And you can see how common of a narrative device this is by how frequent it is, even just in this passage here. So you have, in English, what you want to say is a string of declined verbs. So they gathered together in a temple and they got drunk. And then Vahan took out the sack and blah, blah, blah, blah, blah. And then he got surprised and he said, blah, blah, blah. We like declined verb after declined verb after declined verb after declined verb when we're telling narration. Armenian hates that. It wants participle, participle, participle, participle verb. So when you have multiple ones, Armenian style just prefers to go with participles to start out. It comes across as more elegant. So isknota jolovyali dajami ant kini medin. So literally it's they're having gathered in a temple, they became intoxicated. And Vahan's having grabbed the sack where the things were, he gave it to the servant to blah, blah, blah. And his having been surprised or astonished, he said, blah, blah, blah.
So like you said, the genitive becomes like the subject instead of like a subject to the participle. The participle is acting like a verb now, or like an adjective.
The participle is like a verb. The genitive, you can think of genitive as usually possession, used for possession. You can think of it as, oh, it's possessing that participle or something, but it's basically the subject. It's the one doing the action. So they gathered. Vahan took. He was astonished. That's how you would translate and understand it.
Thank you.
Does that make sense to everyone? Let's look for more examples as we go on too. So who wants to take 150?
I'll give it a crack.
Take it away, Kavork.
Yevna Garkav Patmiats Nama Zor Inch Araryaler. The only thing I'm not sure about, or more unsure about, is Garkav, but I think it might mean in order or in detail.
Exactly.
So he, in detail, told or them what he had done.
Great.
Could it be he in turn, like afterwards, like next going on?
Mhm.
Or
Yeah, so what does Gark mean?
Gark means rank or order.
Yeah, so you can have Gark
How about
Kahanen.
sequence?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's he in sequence, he in turn. That's how I kind of saw that.
Yeah, it's everything from rank, order, file, exactly. And so what form is Garkov?
Aorist, third person, so it's like the past tense.
It looks like it, but it's instrumental, so it's a noun. Garkov.
With order, yeah. That's I had questions. I didn't know which one it was, whether it was the verb or the noun.
Yeah, it's a noun.
So he with rank, or he in turn, he with order, he with sequence.
Yeah, he in order, or any of those things he said, recounted to him what he did, what he had done, exactly.
Can I interject here? So Armenians are vassals, but they're boasting here and they're acting like tough guys. Is this like propaganda, or these guys weren't really all that humble toward the masters?
Ashley, do you want to comment on that, or anybody?
My comment is,
Matt,
my comment is you need to watch Jesse's history lesson, his historian's lesson, because I think he explains all of that.
Alas, I missed it.
Ashley, what would you say to that question?
I would say this kind of thing comes up a lot in the Armenian histories, this scene where the Armenian vassal kind of throws it back in the suzerain's face, and he puts on a tough guy act and says, oh, you think you're bad, you think you're this, you're that, you're so great, but you're like wussies, you're effeminate. He always calls them effeminate, almost always. And he we see this a lot. We see this in the Buzandaran. I think we see it in Moses Khorenatsi, where there's always like a little speech, a little harangue from the underdog Armenian vassal to usually the Persian, sometimes the Islamic caliph, usually the Persian suzerain. And I think it probably, I would say it is propaganda. It's inserted into the text to make the Armenians look kind of like tough and brave. I think that if an Armenian had said this at the Persian court, they would have lost their head. But Jesse, what would you say?
Yeah, basically that. And then you also always want to ask yourself, what language was it written in, and who's reading it? Who's it for? So we wouldn't expect that this would have been a text that circulated among Zoroastrian Persians. The suzerains, they weren't reading this.
But it could have gotten the hands of Armenian allies of the Zoroastrian overlords. Although this could all just be, I think earlier Ashley mentioned we don't really know when this was written, so it could be post-fact propaganda rather than real time.
Great point. Exactly. Yeah. So Ashley, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's written after the Sasanians are already off the scene and the Arabs have come and conquered. And so exactly, this is like looking back and making the past what you want it to be. And, putting your image of yourself in the past as you want to be remembered. Not necessarily like exactly just how it happened.
It's kind of like when you like have a fight with someone and then a few hours later you think of all the stuff you should have said that you didn't say. It's like that, but a few centuries later.
That's actually a really good analogy, Ashley. So yeah, so then he told him in order everything he did. And then who wants to take 151?
I'll do it if I don't have to read the Armenian.
Yeah. Let's see.
I'll read it. And,
Yeah, although you read
translate.
Armenian and Matt translate. Perfect.
Okay. Իսկ նորա պարգացյալ, արյալ ըզդեկն իցարանե ծարային, մեր արգանել ըզվահան.
So this is Meron speaking now. So, but he was enraged. He took the lance from the hand of the servant, intended to strike Vahan.
Good. And how do you know it's Mirhan besides the fact that Vahan is
Because it's the Nora again before because it switched the.
yes, indicating change of subject. So remember na, there is no exactly, there's no he, she, or it exactly in Armenian. There's no gender at all in any of the pronouns. You only have, the pronouns only talk about singularity and plurality, and I guess distance in relation to the speaker. So sa would be someone somehow in the speaker's space. Ta or da would be someone in the interlocutor space, and na is a third entity. So nora, when you're seeing that, it's the other one, the other one. So sora could refer to a closer thing, someone that was just talked about, but when you're saying nora, it's making your mind shift to the other one. So the other one is not the person you were just talking about. That's how it works.
Yeah, Jesse or Matt, Uzdekan is the back or the sack?
Uzdekan is the spear, the lance.
Spear.
So,
Okay.
the spear.
Yeah. So the word is dek. And then the za is indicating it's the object, and the na
Okay.
is the like the.
Yeah, I found dick in the dictionary. Dick.
So see, does anyone see the participle with the genitive again in the sentence? So again, here you see isk nora pargatsial, that same exact thing. Nora zahurial, nora pargatsial. So he got angry when he heard that. He took his spear from the hand of his servant and intended to strike Vahan.
Jesse, does Nora apply also to Arial?
Yeah, it can. Yeah, isk nora, because it's the same one, got angry and took. So see, remember what I said about Armenian style likes participle, participle, participle. As many actions as there are, put them all in the participles until you get to the main, to the last one, then decline it.
Thank you.
So you can see that participle, that's one action he did. Here's the next action he did. And then here's the declined thing. That's the last one of the sentence.
Is that like in the Nicene Creed, I guess, when there is a sequence of the things that Christ had to go through, like
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Like
3 of them.
Exactly. That's exactly that.
Now we get to the good sentence, 152.
Who can read 152?
You want me to read it?
Sure.
Եվ նորացկյալ սերն յուր իսուրն, որ արջի գայր, դրեց թլպադն նորա և ետ իպերան նորա ասե. Თუ ես որ թշամանեիր զասպած և ըզգրավան, very difficult word, ըզգրավնավորման Im İspanyol yedur zisman aşkarki. I think we need to chop up the sentence.
Yeah.
Or paragraph. Paragraph.
Although, is it easier to read if it was like this?
I don't know what you did. I can't follow.
Oh, right here. So instead of the ipune, so in the anytime you see an ipune like that, well, not anytime, but that vowel was changed in 12th century spelling to the O, as you know. And
okay.
So you can just pronounce it like as grona vorsen.
Oh.
When you see that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so who wants to try a translation of at least the first part?
And again, I'm getting confused about Nora and who's Nora here.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
There's no verb and I can't. Is the shift here again?
Ashley?
Yeah, thank you. It is referring to, let me see, to Vahan.
Vahan.
And again, how do we know grammatically?
Because Nora switched it again.
Exactly.
Oh, Nora. Tsukiel. Okay.
Switch a subject, yeah.
And I guess Vahan left or his hands. I guess Vahan pulled his sword, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Is there an Eastern Armenian speaker here?
I can speak Eastern Armenian a little.
What is the difference Eastern and Western Armenian in Sakal?
Tornel is to let go in Eastern Armenian. Tsakel is to let go in Western Armenian. But Tsakel in Eastern Armenian is to tighten.
Yeah.
But the spelling is different.
Yeah. I thought it was something else. But anyway, so this is in Krapar, it means to reach out.
Stretch or extend.
Yeah, exactly. To
Oh, as in tsektil, tsektum.
It's not related to that word.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a different root.
That's satk. Sorry, that's satk.
Yeah. So it means to stretch or extend. So that's why in Western Armenian it comes to mean release, because it's like you reach out your hand to drop. But here it's that core older meaning of just stretch out or reach out.
There's also another like interesting parallel, or I don't know if it was intentional or not. The bad guy is Knora Zahuryal. The good guy is Knora Pargatsial. I wonder if that's intentional. Kind of one sentence begins, one guy is freaking out and the other guy is angry.
Well, these are both Mirhan.
These are both Vahan. Sorry. I thought the first
Mirhan.
one was Mirhan.
Yeah. Okay, so who wants to try to translate this? Or Avo, were you doing it?
Okay, I'll correct me, please. Vor Archigar, I guess the sword was before him, in front of him. Vahana. Gudriats Sulpadin Nora. He cut the skin of him.
Yes.
Well, it doesn't make much sense. Is he cutting the skin of?
He's cutting his own foreskin.
His own, or?
How do you know if it's his own or the other guy's? Armenian is very clear about this, where English isn't, when you just say his.
Nora is, I think, Iran in Krapar, right?
No, it's Anor,
Anor, okay.
the other guy. So if it was his own foreskin, it would be Yur.
That's right.
Yeah, but it's the other guy's, Nora. Remember, always referring to the other one.
Okay.
So look at right here, you have yur. Because that is his own. So he stretched out his hand, his own hand, to his sword, which was before him. And he cut off his, but meaning the other guy's, Nora.
Some nerve.
Yeah.
They're tough.
Good with the sword too, to reach out and do it.
Sharp one too.
And accurate.
Yes. And then what did he do with it?
He put it in his mouth.
I mean, could it be?
Yeah. You have yet to put on that. So
Wow.
Ashley, we're waiting for you to comment now.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I had to really sit down and like just go through the Krapar and really make sure I had this cold, because it would have really changed the meaning of the text if Vahan had cut off Mihran's foreskin and put it in his own mouth, in Vahan's mouth. That would have been a big change. So the owner of the mouth into which the foreskin went was a really significant context for what I was doing here. I never really thought that would be something I would do as a part of my job, but here we are. And but yeah, it's one of those things that I think is really valuable about Krapar, because if this had been written in English, it would have been totally ambiguous. Nobody would have known. And there would have been no way to figure it out. But because it's in Grapar, it's right there. It's very easy. So I can say for certain, yeah, this foreskin went into Mihran's own mouth. His own foreskin went into his own mouth, and that I think is just a display of humiliation. This is the first and I think only time we see something like this in Armenian text, at least up through the end of the Bagratuni dynasty. Where a person is not only mutilated, but then his body part is put in his mouth. So this particular text, the Pseudo-Hovanas, is very unique in a lot of ways, this being one of them. This, I think, is probably the most disgusting text of the early medieval Armenian tradition, which is why I chose to discuss it this evening. You're welcome.
Yes.
Yeah, I first read it. I said, I must be reading all these things a bit incorrectly. Shall I continue?
Yeah, exactly. Then look at what he says after he does this.
Yeah, but Yevase, and he said,
just what a good pious Christian would say at this point.
Two is for Teshamanir Zasvat, Yev Uzgronavorshin im Spanel. Wasn't it you that befriended God, and our religious people, our priests? Is that's correct? And Uspanel, and you made them kill. You killed them basically.
Yeah, remember, like yed with the verb had them killed.
Yedur, I couldn't understand. I mean, I found from the dictionary it's been
Okay.
but exact meaning.
Who recognizes Yadur?
Matt.
Or Ashley?
Wasn't that just from Give, from Danam?
Yeah, so how do you get there? So this is one of the irregular ones. So the first person is Yadu and Yadur, Yed. So this is I gave, it's past tense. You singular gave, he, she gave. So this is when you just have to like know or recognize. But
this one, it's you got to look to the end for the accusative. That's for this one. This is really kind of complicated. So I think, are you the pillar of the world? And then you go into the vor clause, who insulted God and gave order to kill my religious people.
No,
That's how
it's not that. And there, so did you get this far, Avo, to say as Yunsan Ashkati?
No, I didn't read that. Yes, as Simpson Ashkari, of the world. I meant to say the killer of the world.
The pillar of the world.
Yeah, killer of the world, better. Yeah.
Yeah, so Syun means pillar. And then the se is indicating plural, new definite za object. So he's in the nominative to us. And so it can't be also this. This is who they killed. Look at how Uz Yunsan Ashkari matches Uz Grona Vorsen. So you have za. It's not letting me highlight for some reason, but look at how you have the za and then senu, za, senu here. Uz Grona Vorsen, Uz Yunsan. So those are going together as being the same, equated. So it's, are you to us, vor the one who, to us, vor tushnamane yirzastvads, who made God an enemy, who made God your enemy. Yev is grona vorsen im espananel yadur, and had, like you had, my clerics or religious people, monastics, killed Usyuns and Ashkari, i.e. like these clerics who are the pillars of the realm. The ones who hold up the realm metaphorically through their prayers and their holiness.
Yeah. See, I thought he was making an insult to like Mirhan would have had the title, the pillar of the world, and he's insulting him now, like sarcastic. Are you the pillar of the world? You know, with your foreskin in your mouth. That's how I kind of.
Yeah. So if it was that, which like is a possible thing to say, it would have to be Syun Ashkari or Syunan. So where this is nominative, agreeing with the tu and the vor. But because it's accusative, it has to be going with this, which is also accusative.
Jesse, I have a question.
Yeah.
In this context, Ashkar is the world or universe or something. But in other lessons, we heard that Abashkarel has not Ashkar in that word. That is not the same meaning. Abashkarutun. So how could we tell what is what?
The way you tell is the ho.
Oh.
Yeah. If the ho is there, it's Ashkar, as in world, realm. It, land even. But the one that is that from Abashkar is just that. Or wait, no, Abashkar. Oh no, does it also have a ho?
I think it does.
It does. I think you're right. Yeah. We can look in the dictionary on that, but maybe we can do that later because
yeah, I just don't want to take the time. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so to recap, right? So the guy, so he cut off his foreskin, put it in his mouth and said, are you the one who made an enemy of God and had my priests killed, who are the pillars of the realm? And then who wants to go on?
I'll read it, but I'm having difficulty putting meaning into it.
Okay.
Եվ սկիցն ետտեսանել աչացն եւ բադարյալ սպորն նա ձարային հանել զլիարդն եւ տնել իպերանն. Again, very gross. So it's, I mean, Եվ սկիցն ետտեսանել աչացն. This is where I'm having an issue.
Oh, stick it in his eyes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
remember this whole thing. So we had it's actually, there's so much repetition of the same grammatical structures here. So Yed Perel, he had the servant bring Yed Perel Zadai. So here Yed Dasanel Achatsan. So the thing in the dative is the thing doing it. Right? Yed Perel Zadai, he made his servant bring it. No, somewhere else too. You had them killed. Yedur Espanano. And then here, Yed Dasanal Achatsan. Can anyone tell like how the grammar is working?
He gave the order to look at them, look at the noses.
Essentially, but it's like he gave.
To see of the eyes to see.
Yeah, he made it so that the eyes saw the nose. He gave the eyes to see the nose. But he had the eyes see the nose. So like we would say in English, like he made him look at the nose. And then do you want to go on, Alvo or Matt?
Yeah, I'll read. Yeah, go ahead, Matt, if you want to.
And cutting the belly, the abdomen, he gave to the servant to pull out the liver and put it in the mouth.
Yeah.
What else?
That's the worst of it, I promise.
But he's not dead yet. No, the next one's pretty
Not
good
yet.
too.
Not yet.
Moses, why don't you read 154 and then Matt translate?
Okay. Եվ հարյալ ստանագն իփողսն յետոլ իցից. Wow.
And striking the dagger into the neck, he gave to let him on the stake, to impale him.
Exactly. And how did you get a neck for pole? Who knows modern Armenian? So what is pole in modern Armenian?
Viz. Dictionary says viz. Gogort.
Oh.
Good. Who found Gogort? Was that Avo, did you say?
Yeah, in dictionary, not that.
Exactly. Yeah. So in modern Armenian, it's a horn or even like a trumpet or whatever. But if you look in the dictionary, you can find it has another meaning, especially in the plural, which it is here, to mean the throat. So that's what it is here.
Yeah. There is another word, khirchapoch.
Oh.
Khirchapoch is another, it's the trachea.
Ah.
In Armenian. So khirchapoch.
It is shenchapoch, not khirchapoch.
Oh, shenchapoch. Okay, sorry. Sorry.
And the one who did the English translation, I guess, didn't recognize that. And so he suggested it must have been a manuscript error, and this must have meant to be por. He put the knife in his stomach. But I don't think he's right. I think it is this meaning of neck that Avo and that you found. Okay, so then he's like, oh yeah, I forgot about one thing that happened like while he was still alive. So now that's what this next sentence is going to be.
Did I read it?
Sure. Susanna, was that you who interjected? Do you want to read and 155?
I'm not very good at reading, but I find that a lot of Krapar, many things are similar to modern Eastern Armenians, so some things are easier for me to understand.
Yeah,
but I don't read very well, so I don't know. I don't want to.
Oh,
really,
okay,
I'll just,
okay.
Yeah, I'll just if there's something I understand, I'll interject.
No problem. Please feel free to jump in with any comment.
Is tall, it's left it sticking out? Is that what it means?
So again, it's Yed doing, he had him do this. So like he had something happen. So he had him left on a stake.
Oh.
Yeah. And I don't know, Ashley, if it's like there's something significant about putting the sword through his throat first and then like impaling him, or
not that I know of, but I actually did want to jump back to the liver because there is something significant about that. So ancient and early medieval cultures had this this idea of what we call hepatocentrism, which is basically, right now we have this idea that the brain is the center of the body, and for a while it was the heart is the center of the body. But during this period, a lot of cultures believe that the liver was the center of the body. It was a central organ that basically your entire consciousness and all of your bodily functions were located in the liver and came out of the liver, and the liver was like mission control. It was like the central command of the body. And there was a lot of liver worship, liver rituals, not in Armenia, but in surrounding cultures. We see this in Greece, we see it in Rome. And that's the Prometheus myth, right? His liver is eaten every day and then it regenerates, which, by the way, we now know the liver can regenerate itself, which is really interesting. The ancient Greeks knew that, or had some kind of intuitive sense of it. But this hepatocentric idea comes back a little bit. It seems to be a little bit of an echo. It's not very strong in the text that I'm looking at, but there does seem to be this echo of hepatocentrism that whenever something significant happens, it happens to the liver.
Mm-hmm. Well, if I may add to that, those Armenians who speak Turkish or no Turkish, sorry to bring Turkish in here, but when they want to say something, I love you, or they say jigaram.
Yeah.
Jigaram means my liver. Yeah. So I think means that they love the person so much that they call him not my heart, not my eyes, yes, but jigar.
Yeah, Kavork, your comment to jigeras or jigera to them, exactly.
Yeah.
And in a lot of different languages around the world, including English, the word for liver is directly connected necessarily to the word for live and living in life. We see it in English, liver. You can't live without it.
Wow. That's super interesting. Okay, so how about 155? Kavork, do you want to read it?
I'll read it, but I don't think I understand it.
Okay.
155, right?
Yeah.
Եվ մինչ լոգ որ Kalpatan Gadriats Ase, Dur Panits Nich Yev, but Ved I Barsigan Vor Hapahunis Yev Yes Abre Tsutsanem Skez. I have no idea.
Anyone want to take a stab at what they understand from it?
I think maybe it says before cutting the foreskin, he said maybe Turbanitsnich. I don't know, but I understand it makes it to worship Persian, and then he will allow him to leave.
Okay, so very good at the start and the end, and just like a little confusion in the middle. So the Yev Minch Logvod is Tolpat and Guriat, exactly what you said, Susanna.
So he's still alive. He was stuck in the neck and he's got his liver taken out, but he's still living.
No.
No, I think he suggested before he did it.
Yes.
Before.
Oh, so this is just when he did that. So
yeah, he's like, he gave you the whole scene. And then he's like, and now moving back for just a second.
when he cut the force. Yeah. Okay.
When or while?
Well, technically, Minch is
until,
yeah. Until only that he had cut the
yeah, only the foreskin was cut. Yeah,
yeah.
Only. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what, and when still only the foreskin had been cut, you could say something like that.
So
he said,
give sign of words, like give an oath or give assurance.
Okay, that's a good, yeah. So we don't know, right? Like panit's niche, what could it mean? So literally niche is a sign, nashan, modern Armenian, and panit's. So you have to look in a dictionary to figure out what does this idiom mean in Krapar. So let's look at this one together. So you're either gonna have to look in niche or in pan and see like what comes up. So niche.
That dictionary is great if you're looking stuff up.
Yeah. So look, panit's niche. See nashana pan. Nashana pan is a password.
Oh, okay.
So nashan pani. Let's see how they do it in the Krapar Kini. Yeah, so see, panit's niche, I'll nashana pan. So yeah, so it's a password, the secret word. And then how about this? You have bat ver ibar sikan.
Also gave to honor the Persian, like to based on password. It's like, what did you tell the Persian who was in Apahunik to get into the gates or something like that?
Yeah, yeah, it's something like that. Bat ver is a command or order, like Dasan bat virank, the 10 Commandments, or bat viral, to order. Yeah, so it's like give me the password and the command to the Persian who's in Abahunik. Again, like if we had more context, we'd kind of know what's being talked about. And then you have yes, Abra Tutsanem is Kez. And Susanna, what did you say for that again?
I think that means I'll leave you, let you alive, leave you alive. I will.
Exactly, exactly. I'll let you live.
I'll-
Abretsutsumem. And then Yevna devyal panes pazumes, Yevbat ver yetmab asatsial, Zorna yevna miyain kidein. Something's off grammatically here, I think.
Should be Nora instead of Na, because we're switching now.
Well, na is still a switch. Na is just another form of nora. Nora is genitive and na is nominative.
But now Miran's the one who's doing this. He's the subject now. So, because now he's giving the passwords and all this stuff to that he only knew, recognized. He's giving those to Vahan.
So yeah, it is a change of subject because this was Vahan said. That's your last subject in the narrative. Besides the words that are spoken, which disrupt the narrative. And then when it goes back to narrating, you have na for the other guy, so Mirhan. Do you see that, Matt?
Kind of. I was thinking of something else, so don't waste time on that for me.
So quotes don't count with like narration. Quotes don't count as narration in the thing of like a switch of subject to with a different thing. So the last declined verb was this, which is Vahan, Vahan said. And then Yevna, so and the other guy, so Mirhan. And then what did he do? So Yevna devyal panes pazumas. So, and he gave many words, or like he told him many things, gave up the password and the command and whatever else it was. Yev bat ver yetmamp asatsial, and he said the command yetmamp with an oath, like swearing. Zorna yevna miyain kidein, which he and he alone knew.
Recognize.
Yeah, or recognize, but I have no idea why. Kidein is third person plural, and na is singular, so there must be some mistake with the grammar or a scribe or something. Unless anyone else can explain why this verb is plural.
No. I think it's just an error.
Well, I think maybe because there is naivna, two nas.
I
So
know,
that
yeah,
he-
maybe.
That he and him, that one
Yeah.
and the other.
Oh, maybe like that only Mirhan and the Barsik that was mentioned. That could be. Which only that one and the other one knew. Yeah, maybe. Okay, so should we finish it off? Yeviprevas hats zirsen, adios tanagan, yehari sirden, yevanten merav. Did anyone get this far in the reading?
And when he said that, or said the thing, taking the dagger, he struck it into the heart, and there he died.
Yes. So Iprev, when or after here, after he said those things, Zirsan, Adiels Tanagan, taking the sword, Yahari Sirden, he struck it into his heart, Yavantan Merav, and he died on the spot.
And this is happening in a Persian Dajar, right?
Yeah,
And presumably in Persian land or territory.
yeah. And so if you read on in the passage, you can see how he has his like escape plan, you know. So
Oh, he
that's-
does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So this all
it's a-
this happened in about 5 minutes. So we took an hour and a half to. This probably took about 2 minutes for all this to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
So he got away with it.
It's a bad analogy, but you know, I studied in Turkey, and this is how they made stories, heroism and unusual situations where they do all this acts of heroism, and then they escape and go free, basically.
Yeah.
That reminded me maybe 40 years ago, my school years in high school. Yeah.
It's not a bad analogy. It's exactly that kind of like noble in the sense of noblemen, like, upper class.
Superpower.
Yeah, the powerful, exactly that. It's the kind of stories they want to hear.
Right.
Exactly that. And that these histories, for the most part, are patronized by them, sponsored by them, and written for them.
Mhm.
And so they want this kind of material in it because this is what they're interested in.
So presumably this kind of sort of brutality is valued if it's in a total propaganda piece.
Yeah.
It is. In select texts it is. Some texts are very violent, very gory. Some are not. But there are some texts in particular that really, really up the violence and really up the drama factor. And it's interesting. I was looking for some kind of pattern. Like, do things get more graphic and more gruesome as time goes on? Do they progress toward more violence and more brutality? And they don't. But I think that the violence does get more descriptive as time goes on. So that's one interesting thing that I noticed. But there is this kind of shock factor of having descriptions of violence, and the more violence is perpetrated upon an enemy, it's like the greater the victory for the Armenian perpetrator. And the more violence endured by an Armenian, the greater his martyrdom.
That's exactly what I
But
was
in
gonna say too,
modern
actually.
times, if you're talking about heroic feats of Kevork Çavuş or Antranik or so, it wouldn't sound like this,
No.
Well, maybe in 200 years it may.
Don't say that.
Could be.
Well, I just want to add that, in history, from what I learned is that if you capture somebody, you skin them, you basically mortazersken, and they stuff them as trophies, the whole body. So that's much more graphic, in a way. And a trophy which stays with them, with the skin in it. Well, So.
We see that in the Buzandaran. We see that in a couple of earlier texts. We see it in later texts too, but this does come up in the Armenian texts.
The Turks are notorious with that practice. They freely practiced it in Europe when they invaded all the way to Vienna.
Well, in the Korean War also, the Turks were notorious in cutting their ears of the enemy and the penis and stuff. I mean, it's documented.
Yeah.
Bad people, bad. Malo.
And someone brought up was it Narina Rustomji, who brought up the Taliban today doing these kind of things. And basically, yeah, there's still many contexts in which this kind of like really celebration of violent and disfiguring triumph over your enemy, glorified.
Humiliation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, even in the Artsakh war, that we have heard stories, but Azerbaijanis did the same things to Armenian soldiers. Captured.
Exactly. And that's what someone else is saying in the chat.
The other thing that comes up a lot, especially with respect to sexual violence, not necessarily in the context of circumcision in particular, but violence to the genitals in general, it's a kind of demographic violence as well. It's a demographic assault. So there's frequently this intention to sterilize mass numbers of enemy combatants so that they can't reproduce and they can't repopulate. And inhibiting your enemy from repopulating is a very serious issue in the Middle Ages, when populations are often struggling to perpetuate, especially the Armenians, who are always so small in number. Hindering their repopulation can have a major genocidal impact on their numbers, on their demographics. So we frequently see punitive castration. That's quite common. And we see the Armenians doing it to Persians as well in the text, but also the Persians doing it to Armenians. We also see sexual violence against women, rape in order to dilute their bloodlines. We see rape in order to damage women, damage women's anatomy. We see penetration of women by foreign objects. Sometimes that foreign object is something that can cauterize the body, like a burning hot poker. Murder of gestating children, babies in wombs. So a lot of this is demographic violence with that very specific aim.
But it's interesting. I mean, there's two sort of elements to this. One is the reality of what's occurring in real time, and the other is what you are boasting about a certain time past the event. So they're two different things, you know. One and for two. I mean, in war you may commit violence, brutality, but you're not necessarily going to brag about it. And it's interesting that I don't even know if these things happen, yet they're bragging about it. That's a whole different thing, you know.
Yeah, and that's something that I contend with too. Thank you for bringing that up. I don't know if they really happened either. There are a lot of these things that I think probably didn't really happen. This episode we've examined this evening, I think it probably didn't really happen, but it's a way to narratively humiliate one's enemies and display one's power and one's force and dominance. And I think that's the active element of it. That's what I think. I don't know.
Maybe it might even be to sort of spread fear at the time when it's being written, you know?
I think the thing, even if this specific episode didn't happen just like this or whatever, this kind of thing happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's different than actually boasting about it.
That's exactly true.
And to an extent, one of the things I've written about is that it doesn't really matter whether or not it happened. Like you've been saying, Kevork, what matters is that they're talking about it and they want people to think it happened. This is what they value as a kind of cultural show. So that is, I think, a major significant part of it. Yeah.
It's a little disturbing.
Yeah.
That's that part of the world at that time. That's the way it was.
Yeah.
Other parts of the world now is that.
And now, I mean, it's only, it shows you just, it reminds you like just how tenuous the, you know,
Morality.
and recent, yeah, exactly. And that led to the creation of these international laws governing, you know, torture and acts committed, you know, acts of war crime or whatever. There's things that certain parts of the world have decided collectively you don't do, you know, but not everyone abides by it.
Look, when in Camp at Camp Hayastan, when they were teaching us all those Tashnak songs, they didn't involve this kind of boasting. In fact, a lot of it had to do with suicidal martyrdom rather than you know, impaling you know, the enemy. It's a whole, which is a story in itself, but it's you know, totally different, because somehow what's valued now is martyrdom, or I don't know, 50 years after Bankotoman, the martyrdom is the value rather than, you know, what they did in.
That's so interesting.
We see that in the medieval Armenian texts too, where the more gruesome the martyrdom, the greater value it is, the more respected that martyr is. So they'll go into really graphic detail about the ears being cut and the nose being cut, and sometimes they grow back. That's really fun.
They all die by the sword. They get tortured first for days and days, but it's the sword that kills them in the end all the time.
Yeah.
Question to Jesse. You said there's an English version of this book somewhere?
Yes. Let's share the link to
Yeah.
that. There's a PDF on archive, I think. And then with Matt's help, we'll put up onto the website the translation of this passage from that book.
Oh, that would be great.
And the other two. Let me see. I think I can attach the file directly here. But I'm going to also share the link. Just 1 second.
Are you putting that on chat or you email?
Yeah. So coming in the chat is the link to, or the PDF itself, which
Oh, okay.
I think you can download. And then let me also make sure I get the link. Hang on. Okay, so here, Karen, I'm always linking to your brothers, sources. So Robert Bedrosian has put up, all these sources, and this is John Mamigonian's History of Dodon, so Hovannes. And so if you click here, okay, so this is to read it online. You want to?
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's on archive also.
I think everything he's done in Nautilus is on
Yeah,
archive
I
as
think
well.
everything's moved to archive, so let me share that too. Yeah. So this you can either read on here, or you can download it and it'll bring up the PDF. I think. Is this the right one, Ashley?
Yeah.
Okay.
I worked with Levan Avdoyan's translation, but Robert Bedrosian is wonderful also, always.
Yeah, I think I thought he put up Levan Avdoyan's also, because I'm trying to figure out how I would have had a PDF of that.
I don't know.
Yeah, anyway. Any other general questions or comments about the passage or anything? Would you like to hear Ashley give like an actual talk on either ancient forms of torture or, things like that?
Well, we could do a session on the third text, the one with Bob, because it's pederasty and bestiality, and the snake scene was the mother in bed with the snakes. That was pretty good.
I know.
And the demons, don't forget the demons.
Oh, and snakes are the demons. Yeah, that's
Oh yeah.
But we really need, so Avi was commenting on the ritualistic elements to this violence, and Ashley, your comments on, it's not random what they're doing.
Right.
It has to do with procreation and making it so that your enemies can't procreate and therefore, live on in the world, but also raise up sons who become warriors also and everything like that. So I'm looking forward to your work in general on giving analytical interpretations of what does this mean? What's the significance of it? How do we understand, all of this? So great job. We can give Ashley a round of applause.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all. And thank you for having me. Thank you for listening to me. Jesse, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to do this. This was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I wasn't sure what to expect, but this has been such a lovely, interactive, really fun group. I hope I'm invited back. I hope I haven't grossed you all out too much, scandalized everyone.
And now you're on the mailing list, so come back to any session when you're free.
I certainly will. Thank you so much.
Good.
Jesse, one
Yes.
Let me just stop the recording and then.